Today I'm going to be redrawing one of my old pieces of artwork just to see how much I've improved. So let's jump right into it. So this book contains a lot of old drawings that I actually have over on my channel, so if you want to go check them out, you can check out the backlog there. But there's one drawing in particular that I want to redraw. And no, it's not Noelle from Black Clover or whatever her name is. It is actually this blue-haired demon girl right here. So after I get it scanned, let's start drawing it. So this is how the image turned out after I scanned it. And if you want to know what scanner I use to actually scan some physical artwork, you can check out the video that I've done a while ago, which is actually a review on the scanner that I currently use, and it still holds true to today. So with that said, let's start focusing on the redraw. I actually wanted to redraw this because, again, I want to just see how far I've come. This original drawing has been from 2017, I believe. That's when I did a bunch of physical drawings before I started moving more into digital, and that's about the time I got the scanner also. But I want to see how much I've improved digitally, because coloring on a physical medium is different from doing it on a digital medium in certain instances. And with all the new techniques that I found out and have improved upon, which I talk about the coloring techniques I improved upon in this video, which you could check on the top right corner. Also with that review video, you could check on the top right corner too by clicking that. But I digress. I wanted to put it all in amalgamation, different angles, different lighting fixtures, different everything essentially. Just put it all into one piece and see how far I've actually come. Because again and again, I do not take the time sometimes to go back and look at my older pieces and actually appreciate all the time and effort that I put into these things to get to where I am as I am at the moment with my artwork. And it's a good thing to do that every now and again, just to go back and look at how far you have come. But enough of all that feel-good gushy ooshy stuff. To actually get this angle that I was talking about earlier, I took a picture of myself. Actually, I just placed my phone at the edge of like my bed. My bed is on the floor at the moment because I've been needing to actually just make my own bed. I was going to do that with wood, but wood price has gone up and blah 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 blah. But I put the camera on the floor at the edge of my bed and then had my foot slightly in frame, had my other hand resting on top of my left leg, and then had my other hand going over my other arm, just to have a nice little pose. And then I just turned myself into a chick. When actually redrawing and trying to recreate that pose that I did, I found it actually easier to draw the foot first, so the thing that's more in front, and the leg first, and then mend the body around that, just so I already have the bigger things, the bigger objects in perspective, so I don't have to necessarily worry about the head and resizing the head later on to try to get that foot to scale. So if you're struggling and trying to get something into perspective, try drawing the biggest object first and then see if that helps you from there, so you can just make the other objects smaller or relatively to size to that big object. Some of you may have noticed after I got the sketch work down, the blue line work, I moved on to the red line work, and the red line work is actually very particularly clean because I'm going to be using the two-step method. So I'm going into the red line work as a final line work. So essentially that's the two-step method. You just go from a base overall arching theme to the final, essentially just add all the details in the second step instead of going from blue line work to red line work to then outlining it in the final black. I just go to blue line work to red line work, make sure the red line work is very clean, and then I just compress all the layers, copy all the layers when they're compressed, and then I just undo it all so I have all the separate layers for the red line work, and then I paste the final red line work and just go into the filter and change it black. This is so much easier than to, and a lot less time spent than to actually just go in and do all three steps accordingly. And it just, for me, it just flows better. For you, it might not, but I do encourage you to try out the two-step method. I do have a video talking about the two-step method over here on the top right corner of the screen. But yeah, if you want to give it a try, then give it a try. I also did change the character a little bit. As you can see, the hair doesn't necessarily match the older picture, but I changed that because I wanted to give it a more update feeling. And that's how it actually draw it as of right now, with the shorter hair. And then I changed the horns and everything you'll see later too. And I also wanted to keep certain things. So the actual like trident, I would believe it's called, or the spear, I believe it's a trident though, that was originally in the original picture. I wanted to have it in the scene too, but her leaning on it to give her like some back support. Also keep the tail in like a heart shape and everything. And even the clothing. The clothing's all the same. There are a few more things that I changed in the later parts of the video, but we'll get to those as we get to them. I know I mentioned it in the previous video, but I do struggle with backgrounds a lot. So this background, I kind of just went with what was in the picture of my room, but I'm going to be replacing the actual images inside the picture frames with different art pieces that I have actually drawn over the past couple days or past weeks or months, just to give it a little bit more pizzazz and call outs or callbacks to those images. I do struggle a bit with backgrounds, but I will get better at them because I will be focusing on them next, because I believe I got the coloring down pat, I got the shading down pat, and I've got the overall presentation and the vibe down pat. So the only thing that's left for me to really try to master to a certain extent is the background. So I'll be trying to focus on those in the upcoming videos, but that is for later. One thing that bothered me while creating this piece, especially coloring, is that I actually have multiple screens. So if you only have one screen, you probably never notice this, but if you have multiple screens, different colors look differently on different screens. Certain screens are bluer, certain screens are more true to color, and I don't have a tool that costs $100 plus to actually calibrate all the screens to the real life color palette. But yeah, so when I was looking at this image, it looked very nice, very saturated, very vibrant, but when I actually took a screenshot and then opened it on my main PC, it did not look the same. So I was struggling with the coloring for a bit, and then I just decided to boost the fuck out of the saturation of the skin tone. So I did that. I went in and then actually turned up the saturation to 100, and it looked good. I just liked it better. It didn't look as dreary and dead, in my own opinion. I do go back in and start coloring other aspects of the pieces too. I do change a couple things. So the eye patch, I changed to red. I matched the red with the eye patch, the horns, and the tail and the trident in the little heart. I changed that to all match each other just so it has like some continuity and it looks a little bit better. I also go in and change the lips. The lips are originally had like blue lipstick on her, but I did not like how that was turning out on this piece, so I decided to give her a nice little red lipstick going on with the theme of reds, blues, and blah blah blah. They all look nice together, so it just turns out really well, luckily. For the shirt, I actually utilized the same method that I talked about in my previous video, again, the coloring one, where I do the lighter tones on the top and then the darker tones on the bottom while using a brush to make it so it has like a nice fading effect. And then the darker tone that I use for the fading effect is actually the folds coloring. So I go in and then add a little bit of folds and add a little bit of highlights in there. I move on to the red horns and all the red pieces that I mentioned earlier, like the eye patch and stuff like that. Did a little blending, added a little bit of shine, did multiple layers for each of those just to give it a little bit more kind of texture-ish type of feel. I also went back in and added the shading to the eye because I noticed I had forgotten that. And that is actually pretty big. If you don't have the shading in the eye, it kind of looks kind of weird in certain aspects when you're drawing it, and I wanted to make sure I had that. When I started working on the background, I actually had no idea what I was going to put in those picture frames, but as I said earlier in the video, I decided to actually put in pictures of past drawings or past videos that I have done previously. This gave it a whole total or encompassing more effect to the actual piece, and it just made it more personal to the touch. I do go back in and change the wall coloring background because it does not look good at all right now. The pink and the white. I don't know what I was doing. I genuinely don't know what I was doing. Again, I suck at backgrounds, so it shouldn't be a surprise that I didn't know what I was doing. So after a while, I decided and landed on making a more darker tone background after messing around with a couple of things to make the character pop from the back. I did also mess around with like trying to blur the background, but again, I didn't really like it, and I came up with something that I really liked. Now, what I didn't do in my previous video, but what I do in my other videos is add shadowing. So I went in with a black shadow at first. I know, sacrilegious, but I do go in with a black shadow, and then I actually use that black shadow to get the other color that I want. So I just select the black shadow, then replace the color with another color on top of that, and then I started fading out the shadow and fading out the black shadow, the color shadow and the black shadow, to give it a nice little feel. And this is how everything turned out. Now, I know I say this a lot, but I really, really love how this piece turned out, and I should. With every piece that I create, I should love it for that time period because it shows that I'm getting better and better. In this particular case, it really shows how far I've come from 2017. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you later. Peace. Bye-bye.